Detroit Den 313. We are back. Stephen Will talking that Detroit Lions football. Before we get started, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Do not forget the bell icon so you don't miss any of our new content. Steve, tell the people what we're talking, please.
Not a hot topic, but I think it's a very, very interesting question. I think we're going to have some difference of opinions from our followers,
I
our
thought you were saying we
subscribers.
were going to have a
Oh no,
difference of opinion.
I think we'll mostly be on the same page for the most part. But I don't know. I'm kind of scared of this one if I'm being honest with you, because we're going to talk about Aaron Glenn. We're going to talk what he's needed, what he's gotten. Is it enough? Some backlash he got. So let's just start. Let's just start from the beginning.
Okay.
You know, twas a fall day in 2023.
It was.
A lot of people were not happy with the defensive performance. A lot of people were calling for Aaron Glenn to be fired. How did you feel during that time? Let's say around when we were kind of struggling, when we went into that Bears game, the Packers game on Thanksgiving. That little stretch of games there was pretty ugly, but it was pretty ugly from a whole team standpoint. But let's just kind of focus on Aaron Glenn. During that time, how did you feel about AG?
Just at no point in this thing have I thought that the answer was firing AG. And I know a lot of people came for him talking about how he didn't adjust, talking about how he was just basically the overall reason why this defense was sucking. And I've always defended him kind of like we defend J-Mo constantly on the show. Have I had some situations to where I was a little bit confused about certain things? A little bit, but not too crazy. I think Aaron Glenn's done a good job. And even during that time, I did have moments where I had to go back and watch film and I'm like, wait a second. It's nobody's getting to the quarterback. What do you expect out of these cornerbacks? And what do you expect from really an opposite NFL quarterback to do if he's got an hour to throw the football? No cornerback is going to be able to cover guys for hours at a time. And I know that one of the things that was brought up during that time, and Steve, I think you can attest to it too, being brought up is, man, we need to blitz more. We got to blitz. We got to blitz. We got to blitz. And I remember distinctly us doing a show and you talking about the fact of when you blitz, there's holes in the blitz, right? So it's one thing to sprinkle in a blitz. It's another thing to call yourself Don Brown back in the day at University of Michigan and just say you're gonna,
that's a name I don't want to hear ever
man,
again.
you're gonna solve all your problems with aggression and you're just gonna blitz and play cover zero
You
behind
remember
it and
his
good luck.
nickname?
What's that?
Dr. Blitz. That's what
Yeah.
they used to call Don Brown.
Dial it up, baby. Dial it up. So yeah, man, at the NFL level, there's tells to the blitz. These quarterbacks are highly trained to recognize when the blitz is coming, and all these quarterbacks are gonna do is replace your body with the football. That's it, and that gives up big plays. So that wasn't an answer, but I did see him do some exotic things. I did see some stunts. I did see Iffy Melifonwu getting in the mix and Brian Branches. So I don't think the answer was ever Aaron Glenn to me this last season. I think it's always been he hasn't had the pieces.
I'll be honest with you. I remember I haven't put it out. I sent a tweet that I wanted Aaron Glenn fired. This was when things were bad, when we were giving up like 35 points a game, putting your offense in a very, very uncomfortable spot. If you're giving up 35, we got to score 36. That's tough to do in the NFL. It's tough. It's real tough. I think at one point, our lowest point of the season, the Detroit Lions defense, I remember doing the math and it did change. So if you Google it right now, you'd have to go back to whatever date I looked this up. But I did my research. Detroit Lions defense was giving up 28.7 points per game.
Yeah.
That's not good. It means your offense has to score 29. That's tough to do.
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying I wanted AG fired. And I remember saying, I don't think Dan Campbell is going to fire a guy in the middle of a season while we're first place in the division. Mm-hmm. It just didn't make sense. And some people pointed out how we fired Aubrey Pleasant. We fired Anthony Lynn. Look, the team was not in the same predicament that it was in with those two guys on their coaching staff. We were in the playoffs pretty much from week one. We kind of controlled our own destiny the whole way, didn't let up. You're not going to fire a defensive coach when you're holding on to first place in your division. When you fire an Anthony Lynn, when you fire an Aubrey Pleasant, that's because we were third. We were fourth place. Like, it was kind of like we need to make a move, try to shake things up. It was a completely different scenario.
You're dead on. I agree, man. Yeah, I thought you were dead on when you said it. Then you don't fire a DC or an OC when you're number one in your conference. What are we talking about?
When you're fighting for a number 1 seed in the NFC as well. Like we were in the mix most of the season too.
Oh yeah, agreed, man. Agreed.
Aaron Glenn, yeah, he made some adjustments. Like I said, at one point, 28.7 points per game. And then there was a point where if you do the math on 3 or 4 games, that came down to 20 points per game.
Mhm.
That's a whole possession. That's a touchdown and a 2-point conversion better on defense. 20 is more, it's easier to ask my offense to go out and score 21 than it is 29. That's an 8-point difference. That's huge. That's a whole possession. He got better. He made some adjustments with what he had on defense, and we've talked about it. The only criticism I've ever really given Brad Holmes is that he's kind of loaded up on offense more than defense, I think, weapons wise. But I think this offseason, I think he's kind of addressed it. He's fixed the secondary. He's fixed the defensive line, brought in DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport. We still have the draft. We talk about personnel, but the personnel's kind of it's getting there.
I just think about who we want to be as a team, and it's funny that you mentioned that 21 points. When 21's my number, man, and we're talking about an offense that is supposed to be one of the best, if not the best, in the league moving forward. That offense has to score 3 touchdowns in 4 quarters. That shouldn't even be a big deal, right? We probably should have a quarter where we score 14, and I just need you to score another touchdown,
one more touchdown somewhere
throughout the game. You know what I mean? So that should be not even a thing. So my dream has always been for the Detroit Lions have a 20-point defense, and we hand the football to Jared Goff and say, hey, just go score us 21 points and we're good. 21 points.
That should be too easy.
Too easy, man. Too easy. So that's the dream for me. And I think Aaron Glenn is capable. If you think if he has the right pieces, do you think that that's something that he's capable of doing? We know he did it for a small chunk of a season, but you think he's capable of putting out that type of defense for a season?
I have faith because what we did last year to the end when we kind of got that number down to 20, our secondary was completely obliterated. Cam Sutton was our only day one starter that was still on the field. Effie Melifonwu came on late. Kirby Joseph, I guess, too. But we lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson right off the rip. We never got to see Emmanuel Mosley. Broderick Martin was a draft pick that didn't play. Levi Onwuzurike was someone who was high in training camp that didn't play. Lee McNeil got hurt for 5-6 games, had to miss some time. Our defensive line was decimated. Our secondary was decimated. We were pretty much saying, Aiden Hutchinson, carry 10 other guys on your back and take this team to where it needs to be. It was damn near impossible, but somehow our offense really stepped up. But our defense was obliterated most of the season. Would you agree?
I would agree, and I'm halfway tempted not to say anything because you're just cooking and preaching the gospel right now.
Just look at our D line. Like we missed Lee McNeil for 5 or 6 games. I can't remember which games he missed, but I know I can't even remember what he hurt, his ankle or something.
His ankle.
Levi Onwuzurike did something to his back. He was looking really good all preseason and camp. Everyone was very high on him. Everything on Twitter, practice highlights that I saw in person or on Twitter, TikTok, he looked really good. Broderick Martin was a draft pick that we kind of knew was a project, but he never really got on the field.
Yeah.
Josh Pascal was hurt to start the season. It was a perfect storm. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, like we were missing guys all over. This year, keep everyone healthy, added some pieces, get to the draft, add some more young talent, an edge rusher, a backup corner. I think we're going to be solid. I have faith in AG, and this is coming from a guy who did want him fired at one point.
Steve, I look at it, man, and when I really think about this thing and what AG was able to do, and I think at the back half of the season, when we're talking about even the Dallas Cowboys game, this was an offense that was scoring 38 points at home, right? When I think about him, and obviously CeeDee Lamb had a day, right? But when it comes from a statistics standpoint, they didn't have their way like they had been having their way at home. And I think about that. Who was he out there doing it with? He was doing it with Dorsey, a punt returner and kick returner, special teamer. He was out there doing it with Kendall Vildor. We seen what Kendall Vildor is. No shade, but he lets footballs bounce off his face.
And balls off his face too.
I wasn't gonna put him out there, but hey. So just trying to talk the facts, man. Aaron Glenn was out there doing it with what's my man's name from Pittsburgh?
Sutton.
Alua. No,
Oh
Alua.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we're picking up guys off of the street to come back and play defensive
Kendall
tackle.
Vildor was picked up off the street too. He came from the
Yeah,
Bears practice squad.
yeah, got cut from the Bears, and we're picking up guys where you talk about dollar menu free agency. Bruce Irvin, you know, uh, like we're going out and finding dudes that are retired or basically on the streets, man. Probably selling insurance, and we're bringing them in to play football for us, and Aaron Glenn is putting it together. I think if you give this guy capable athletes at each position that makes sense and they fit playing together, I think it's going to be special. The guy put together a run game without, or a run stopping defense without DJ Reader. Now we got DJ Reader. He didn't have a lockdown corner. Now we may have one, and Cam Sutton can go play cornerback too, right? We can have a Meek in the nickel. We can have just a rotation of safeties, or I think you might see us playing Iffy Melifonwu in the box a little bit in some packages, but yet remains to be seen. But we have answers to a lot of those problems. Don't let us get another edge rusher opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. I think you might see Aaron Glenn be talked about as assistant coach of the year.
I sure hope so. I mean, like I said, I wanted him fired at one point, but nobody's cheering for him more than us here. Who do we always compare Aaron Glenn to? We always compare to what he's doing to what Ben Johnson is doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you add some of those injuries on the offensive side of the ball, say we lost 2 defensive tackles. Let's say we lose 2 offensive linemen last year. This team is crippled.
Yeah.
We were crippled. We lost to CJ Gardner-Johnson and Emmanuel Mosley. Let's say if we would have lost Amon-Ra St. Brown and David Montgomery, 2 playmakers, like this team is crippled. That's kind of what Aaron Glenn was dealing with. He was just having to put pieces together, pulling people from other teams. Now we have some depth. Regardless of how you feel about Carlton Davis, don't you dare leave it in the comments that Carlton Davis is worse than Kendall Vildor. It's an upgrade. I truly believe Kendall Vildor was the worst cornerback in the league. So even if you don't love Carlton Davis, just look at it as we upgraded at the position for sure. 100%. There's no argument.
I'll tell you, if somebody puts in the comments that Davis is an upgrade from Kendall Vildor, I won't even have an argument. I'll
tell you right now, you will not be acknowledged, and I'll let our fans and followers take care of that one for us. You guys get out to the streets and fight that one, because Steve and Will are going to set that one out. Someone's going to say it on purpose just to be funny. Now I can see it coming, but
you'll probably get a comment from me that just says God bless.
If you say it, at least put an LOL at the end. Do not try to justify it with a paragraph long comment. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the draft. I really think I've been saying this all week, all month. The Detroit Lions have made some phenomenal moves in free agency. It's nothing that's really blown the world away, but it's solid depth pieces. That's what we're talking about. We lost all those guys we mentioned. Now we have some depth. We really haven't lost anyone huge in free agency. CJ Gardner-Johnson, he played 5 games. Look what we did without him. Wasn't really a huge need. We showed that we could win without him. So if you want to call that a huge loss, I guess, sure, if that's what and Jonah, but I think we replaced him with Zeitler, who's better and cheaper.
I agree.
So if you give Aaron Glenn the pieces that he needs, this defense, get it on par with the offense, get it in that top 10 categories. You have some stats. You have some Aaron Glenn stats that we kind of skipped over. Let's get into that for a second.
It was just defensive stats right out of the gate, man. And I honestly don't think the stats truly speak to what this defense was, but just off the top of my head, man, looking here through some of the stats, at the end of the season, 23 points per game, right? It's 25th, right? 348 yards, 23rd. We're looking at third down conversions, right? We were 13th, right? Touchdowns against, right? 30th. So we struggled, man. We struggled. It's just flat out. But then when we get into where we were successful and where we were tough, it was against the run. Rushing yards per game, number 2. TDs against us, right? 22nd. Opponent rushing yards per play, 8th. Percentage, of first downs rushing the ball, number 6. So against the rush, man, we were tough. That's something that we knew. The pass game is where we struggled. The pass game is where we got exploited. And it's something that I think we addressed. And that's one thing that Brad Holmes is known for. He's known for taking a weakness and making it a strength, man. So hopefully flowing into the season, it actually happens. I think it was something that he tried to do last year by bringing in Cam Sutton and bringing in Emmanuel Mosley. I think it's something that he is addressed again, and hopefully this one actually sticks. But I feel like the whole reason why this show kind of came together was because of this question. So I got to toss it out there. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it in the comments that Aaron Glenn should be on a short leash going into the 2024 season. And if he shows any signs of not having success, we should get rid of him. Do you think that Aaron Glenn is on a hot seat? And do you think that he should be on a short leash and we should be ready to move on from him?
Man, that's a tough question. Someone who wanted him fired. I can't say that the seat's not a little bit warm. I can't say that it's not heated up a little bit. Is he going to get fired after 2 weeks? No. It also depends. I really think it depends on the NFL schedule that comes out in May. Who are we going against? Keep in mind, the Detroit Lions are going to be playing a number 1 schedule this year because of how good we played last year. So we're getting all those other divisions. We're getting their number 1s. Schedule's going to get tougher. I think that's going to play a factor. But at the end of the day, this is a show me business. The NFL doesn't care what you did. You got to go out and perform. You got to win games. Mm-hmm. I think Aaron Glenn has the pieces, and he's going to get more pieces. Yeah. Is the seat hot? I would say yes, but I don't know what would have to happen for him to get fired. I think we'd have to be looking at a continuation of last year where, maybe the first 6 games, if we're giving up 28 points a game, I think then it's time to have a talk. But if the Lions are 5-1 and you're giving up 28 points a game, I don't know. There's a lot of things that go into that. There's a lot of X factors, lots of tools in the equation.
Yeah. To me, I don't think he's in a hot seat. But I do think we do need to keep an eye on him from a standpoint of this, man. When we go out into that field next year, if guys are healthy, all right, so if Carlton Davis is out there, Cam Sutton's out there, Meek's out there, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, the list goes on, right? These guys are healthy. These guys are playing. We got all of our weapons, and we go out and get that edge rusher in the draft. There's no excuses. And this is an Aaron Glenn fan. I look at the film and I look at some of the things that he's doing, and I look at the way that he's called games, and I think that he calls solid football games. So if you get all of those pieces and you're not successful this year, yeah, we gotta take a look at you and see what the issue is. But I believe that he is a good coordinator, potentially maybe great. I'm not going to say great because you got to put the proof out there and have the results to be great. But his peers say that he's a leader of men, and they voted him
and players.
As just being, just a phenomenal coach, man. So
number one assistant coach that players and coaches voted him number 1. So that says something about the respect he has in the league.
So when we start talking about guys like me, who I'm not able to see him on day in and day out, he's not coaching me. We are only seeing what we see when we get an opportunity to see practices for that little bleep of time, and what we see in media and on Sundays when we're at Ford Field. I think we need to get this guy an opportunity with all the pieces, and then to make a true evaluation from there.
Yeah, if we go out in the draft 5 weeks from now and draft that edge rusher, Aaron, there's no more excuses. Zero. Even without the edge rusher, I'd say there's 0 excuses. With what we've given you in free agency, huge upgrades, depth. I think the pressure's on. Like, what the offense is going to do. The question is, what's the defense going to do week in, week out? We're going to give up 20 points a game, 28. I don't know. It kind of depends on who you're playing, but it's the NFL. You got to find ways to win games. You can't let your opponent score more than you. That's pretty much how you win a football game, if I'm not mistaken, is scoring more points than the other team.
Yeah, I agree, man. That's the name of the game. So for me, not necessarily on the hot seat, but if you get all of these pieces, man, you gotta put it out there.
Yeah, no more excuses. Time to put up or shut up. But guys, that's the question. Leave it in the comments. Is Aaron Glenn on the hot seat? and what needs to happen if he struggles. How short is that leash? Let us know. Leave some comments down below. Hit that like button. If you're new here, stick around, subscribe. We'll be back later with some more content.
Peace.